for the transcript if you were the microphone.
Don said microphone. I think it's a bit clear. Okay. Right. Well, welcome to this evening's Operations and Assets Committee meeting. Welcome to everyone. We don't seem to have any members of the public, so we can progress straight to starting the meeting. Soon as started, soon as ended. So first off, item, do we have any apologies?
Councillor Fernandez and Councillor Steenford chair, with Councillor Strauss subbing Councillor Steenford.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Strauss, and you're very much welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Does since Councillor Strauss is subbing, is he able to vote? Yes. So I think, for regards to the previous email you sent, Councillor Strauss, you would be able to vote.
Thank you, Chair.
Good. Right. So next item: declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest, members? No? Okay. Right. So item 3, the minutes. Take it as read that anyone has, or take it that anyone has read the minutes. Are there any comments? Any amendments, changes that people would like to make? In that case, do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Fanning. The seconder. Thank you, Councillor Tully. All those in favour that I sign these as an accurate record? Do that. Should I sign now or later? Right. I think just from matters arising from the minutes, the one thing I would mention is that with the item on the play parks, we did in the end receive the full S106 money funding, or 19,500 that came through this week, granted to us, so that will be now spent on Fireswood Park. Other than that, that's the only thing I have to mention. Apart from the fact, of course, that the depot was finally opened this week on Tuesday. Sadly, I had to miss it. Any of you go?
Cut the ribbon.
Cut the ribbon.
With shears. Very impressive scissors.
So very nice, very good. So that I should look forward to. Well, I've had the tour of it before. So look forward to seeing it fully in operation. So well done to all the team who got that together. All the months of planning, dealing with contractors, and everyone who's been involved. So it's going to be a good asset to this town. It's going to enable us to deliver all the services to our open spaces and our parks, and it's going to help us do it efficiently and cost effectively. So very pleased. Right. Next item, forward plan. So is this coming up on the screen? Oh, Marcus?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There were 2 items that I've added today that might be coming forward just as a sort of heads up, if I can just briefly discuss those. So one is about the use of the community payback team in our parks and open spaces. So we're meeting with the probationary service that operate that to formalise that in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, I think it would be good and pertinent for you as a committee to agree to that taking place. Yeah. It was an arrangement that was done under the Somerset Western Taunton Council previously, so largely positive. Obviously, community payback helping to maintain our parks and open spaces, benefits for the council and the people that are using their skills as well. So that probably be coming forward. And then there's a talk of an agenda request form for a graffiti wall that may be coming forward as well. So I've added that to the floor plan for September as well. There's a couple of other ones that are on there currently. The French Weir concession inquiry, those discussions are ongoing. It's not definite that it will be coming forward in September. I want to put it there as a placeholder just in case those discussions develop. The ward member is aware. see how that goes. Thank you.
Two things from that. The first one is, can you just elaborate more on what the French Weir concession inquiry is?
Chair, we've been approached by a person looking to install a type of ice cream similar to like the one that's at Library Park.
Okay. And the other one is, does the graffiti wall come to this committee or to community in place? It sounds like it's more of a community in place. We have to build it.
I think because it would be a physical asset within one of our park assets, potentially, that it should come here first.
Right.
To allow us to invest officer time in exploring further and seeking costs, etc.
Okay, I've got two questions. I'll go to Harrow first and then, sorry, Councillor Ellis and then Councillor Strauss. Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, just on the community payback thing, there's a lot of frustration about Somerset Council not maintaining, it's like paths, like vegetation along paths in various different places in and around town. And I've sort of said, how do you get community, can't we, if they won't deal with it, because it's their responsibility, they say, well, we've got money, well, can't they then do something with community payback? So can we factor that into the discussions? Because yes, it's great if we can get a bit of a lever and a bit of extra help with the parks and open spaces, but the real problem is the things that Somerset Council are not maintaining, that are unkempt, that are really their responsibility. But we have an interest, obviously, in making everything in and around town beautiful and wonderful. So it would just be really useful to kind of factor that in.
And we also, I think, in the last meeting from the minutes, we were also looking at community payback to help with the the Maidenbrook Park area. Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so they could do that. We would have to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the community payback team. But then they said that underneath that, they can do risk assessments for anything such as like litter picking, path clearance. Obviously, we'd need to get Somerset Council's permission as it's not on that, but I'm sure they'd be absolutely fine about that. I know there are concerns that have been raised by members about these sort of key arterial paths, like behind Malvern Terrace and the railway station areas where they could really do with a blitz. So definitely open to working with the community payback team to see if we can support some of that. And then the other question was around.
Well, we answered the other question about the graffiti wall.
There was something else just about.
Councillor Strauss?
It's probably appropriate under this heading. I'd just like to formally report that I received an email from Liz Payne-Amadi on behalf of the Trades Council with a request that they would like to plant a tree in Goodlands Gardens rather than Vivery, because that comes under Taunton Town Council, and they thought they might get a more favourable response from us, reading between the lines. And I did stress to her, it's not a given, it would have to come before this committee and there would be various considerations. And I made it very clear that I couldn't influence the decision one way or the other, but I would pass it on. And I sent the email on to Paul and copied in Nick. But it should be discussed at this meeting, probably the next meeting.
So, did you want to talk about the planting policy?
I'm happy to respond to that. I think because we are seeing an increasing number of requests and offers to put both trees and benches and statues and all sorts of things within our open spaces, I think it's prompting us to have a look at putting together a policy to cover such items, to make sure there's a fair parity across the board with all those requests and who they come from, to encourage as much of that investment into our open spaces as we can from various organisations, but to also ensure that it's best for Taunton rather than for the person offering or the organisation that's offering, and that there aren't political undertones to those offers as well. So it's appropriate that we start to develop policy, and then we can go back to these offers and apply that policy to the offers.
Just to make it crystal clear, They did want the tree to commemorate victory in Japan, because many trades unionists did actually die in the armed forces at that time. So that was the reason for asking. And the other thing is, she did stress, I mean, this lady happens to be the national chairman of the Communist Party, so she made it very clear this was on behalf of the Taunton Trades Council and nothing whatsoever to do with her political interests. She did actually make that point. So, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, but I made it very clear that I couldn't actually comment one way or the other. But it is something that we should consider. So.
Marcus.
Sorry, Chair, I remembered the question you asked about water lease and community payback.
Oh,
So I can give an answer on that if you like.
Oh, yes.
So community payback can't be used for that particular job because the land isn't owned by a council, it's owned by the developer, which is a profit-making enterprise. So the community payback have like a blanket rule where they're not allowed to do works on land that's owned by profit-making ventures. But we have got a number of quotes coming through for that. And once we've had the required number of minimum quotes for our procurement regulations, we'll then sit down and assess and then proceed with commissioning that work. But we also have been in touch with Somerset Council and the developer, and they're getting closer to adoption as well, which is positive. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. That answers that query from from the meeting last month. Okay, now Councillor Ellis.
Sorry, really quickly, since we're on the subject of trees, yeah, that's a lovely idea. I think Goodland Gardens, it's got quite, a decent tree canopy, but I think if we talk to Jordan as well, the climate officer, and find a really good species that will kind of add to it in terms of our ecological strategy, then we can, meet the Trades Council's desire to have a commemoration, but also it can benefit our ecological strategy and our wildlife strategy. So I think that could be really, really lovely. Other thing, just quickly, because I am going to forget about this unless I mention it now, there was a planning application that we were determining at Planning West. This was 2 meetings ago. This is at Somerset Council, and the Staple Grove Road, the Staple Grove West, and the enabling works to the highway and putting that massive wall in. And there's a whole bunch of Somerset Highways trees that are coming down. And I might have kicked off and said, 3 for 1. Yeah, the 3 for 1 policy has died a bit of a death, unfortunately. One may be going to try and revive it. However, then at the last meeting, we were advised that this isn't what Somerset Council is doing, but Blore Homes, who are the developer of Staple Grove West, apparently are going to send Taunton Town Council 1,200 quid so that we can spend it on trees, 250 quid to another community woodland. But I don't know if it's come through yet, that money. Definitely. Have you had any correspondence from Blore?
Marcus?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had some correspondence from Simon Fox asking the town council's bank details and the £1,250 contribution that we're all willing to make to the tree planting, which is great.
And how many trees for that plant?
It depends on their saplings. They're cheaper than the ones we put in for the UTCF. They were more expensive because they were more mature.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many.
Yes, does it quite cover the 3 for 1 there?
No, it doesn't. But in fairness, Blore didn't have to do that. Really, it's Somerset should have. Anyway, are we pursuing that?
Yes, I remember the Somerset Council were unaware of this, isn't it? I think it's the policy.
Somerset West and Taunton policy.
Yeah, Somerset West and Taunton policy.
By the way,
I'm not sure if we adopted it as the town council.
Yes.
So we need to push Somerset Council to adopt the same policy. But it's good. It's good news because I had to miss that planning meeting last Tuesday. It's good news. Right. Anything else on the forward plan? That's that quick agenda. That's very well. Anything else people would like to mention? Okay, right. So, first main item is notice boards report, and we're here to consider the following: to seek agreement for the replacement and upgrade to several of our notice boards across Taunton, to delegate decision making and spend to the operations and assets manager in conjunction with the RFO, and to recommend the spend of EMR 3, 4, 5 on benches, bins and signs to full council. Okay, and then it's going to full council because it's
EMR.
here's the EMR, yeah. Right, okay, so Tilly, I believe you.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Presented this.
So first, I just wanted to note the amendments within Appendix 2, which is the change to French Weir Park and Taunton Green, the named location, and then also Appendix 3 with the adjustment of French Weir location on the map. So they were all the amendments of the appendix. So yeah, we've recognised that some of the notice boards across our areas are lacking in their overall condition, and some of the Taunton Town Council branding. So several of our notice boards were inherited from former parish councils, and we've noticed that there's a lack of coverage across the town as well. So we've previously undertook a project where we've listed these and scored them, and the list is within the report itself. So most of them include within Staple Grove and our parks. Within the Comitro area as well, there are surplus notice boards that we've identified as they're in quite a near radius of each other. So we're proposing to use these excess notices boards and relocate to Staple Grove to reduce the cost of purchasing brand new notice boards. So the notice boards that we're looking to purchase have a 20-year lifespan and are made from recycled plastic material. They have the appearance of timber, but they're made from sustainable recycled plastic. The 2-bay notice boards will have one side locked for Taunton Town Council notices, and the other side is a turn handle for open access to the public. So this will be the same for the 3-bay notice boards located within the parks, except we're looking to have signage within the middle to reflect the history of our parks too. We have another project ongoing for the Green Flag Awards, so we're just trying to kind of combine the two at this stage now. So to summarise, we're proposing to spend up to 24,000 from the EMR 345 budget line. So that includes full replacement of 6 notice boards, as 2 notice boards will be replaced from the ones in Comitro, and 3 new notice boards to be installed, and adding our Taunton Town Council branding to the remainder of them across the town. And any questions?
Lovely, thank you very much, and we're very pleased to see that. The material design, I think recycled plastic, it's good. It's a good material to use. I take it this is recycled plastic from crisp packets and all these kind of.
I'm actually not too sure where the recycled plastic comes from, but.
And in Exeter, that's taken out a kind of plastic tubs in the street.
I see.
They're very durable, and as I said, they look like wood.
Yeah, have the appearance of wood. So.
Park benches, I think it's very good use of that. Do I have any questions? Councillor Hens.
Yeah, no, we obviously support this. Well done, Tilly. I just had it sort of when you look at the map, there's obviously a massive gap in the town centre. Now, we're meant to be taking control of the rotundas, am I right?
Yes.
So I don't know whether that reflects the fact that, so it's like Goodland Gardens isn't getting a notice board, but there is the rotunda, at least one, if not more,
Yeah.
in Goodland's Gardens. So is part of the comms strategy that some of the information that would go on a notice board where we have the notice boards in parks, some of that we would use the rotundas for, so that we can communicate the key things that we need to as a town council across the town centre. Because if not, I think we've got a bit of a gap there. You know, you've got high footfall in the town centre. You know, people might stop and sort of think, oh, there's an event on in here, or in next weekend, and oh, there's a meeting coming up. Oh, you know, it just seemed to be, when you look at the map, it's a very obvious gap. I'm thinking that's fine if there's an alternative way in which we as a town council could communicate. And is it the case that, I'm assuming the rotunda, I can't remember what the plan was with the rotundas. I know that we were going to take them on.
I think talking to Grace then there is a attempt to take them on. I mean, I think the trouble with the town centre is we can only put notice boards on land that we own, and I'm not sure how much of the town centre we actually own. So, but the rotundas, you've got something you have to report on that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I believe a report went to community in place a couple of months ago, committing some funding to the refurbishment of the rotundas, and I believe they'll be wrapped up within the visitor centre devolution as and when that happens. I know that's coming forward as a recommendation from community in place to full council in September, but as far as we're aware, we're assuming the rotundas will be wrapped up within that devolution package. So as you say, it probably would make sense for us to reserve some of the spaces, some of it used commercially, and then some of it for that informational aspect, as well as obviously a visitor centre could potentially have a notice board either on its premises or just outside. We do also know that BT and other firms are looking at putting in digital notice boards, and they commit as part of that, if they get planning permission, to allowing certain time of space for promoting aspects for the local councils. So that could be a potential avenue as well for putting messages out. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, getting back into the issue, I mean, one thing I was looking at in the maps, thinking, yes, there's a big gap. One question I was going to ask is there going to be a notice board in every ward? Because I think it's quite important that every ward has a notice board. I noticed that Staple Grove has 4. Common Trove has many, though I do appreciate some of them are going, aren't they?
Yeah.
So some of them are going. But is every ward getting a notice board? Because then it's a very good way of just, as you've seen with the appendix, a very good way of advertising who the ward councillor is. But also very good to not only communicate, but also actually that open bit is very good for the local communities within that each ward.
Yes.
Important. So that's my first question. Is every ward getting a notice of board?
I'm actually not sure what the proposed plan is for the remainder of the notice boards themselves. We are looking to put them in our parks, additional parks for the green flags, but in terms of the ward areas, I'm not too sure what the next plan is.
That might be something.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's a great thing doing, and he's done a lot of good work here. So
Yeah, thank you.
very much. But just that's one observation. So,
Yeah.
Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Chair.
I was getting that.
I was about to say virtually what you said. If you look at the town, Carol has actually said about the town centre, which is obviously one area. The other 3 areas, Common Trove, I've got the name of the council now, the local council.
Council or councillor?
The council. I forgot. It has gone. That's good. Cheltenham Fitzplains, the old one, and Garmenton. They had parish councils. They've all got them well and truly scratched. The council, the area myself and Mayor cover, is Buckingham. The park is great, but not everybody gets to that park. Our area is so large.
Yes, it is.
But we need them in places where people actually see them. You know which ward we're from? We're from Holcombe and Lane. And Holcombe and Lane, you've got them in the park, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the shopping centre where the church is, there's nothing there at all. And that badly needs where people are. Otherwise, you're basically saying we're not interested in you.
I think it's the same with that. We're got Boston. So you've got one is proposed to go from Taunton Green.
Yeah.
That's a long way away from the Dow Close, which is also in the same ward. I mean, that would never. It'd be really nice. I know that actually they're probably closer to the Hudson Way one. So that's all right. Very close. It'd be lovely to see one in Greenway Rex. I think they're very good for advertising local community groups. Councillor Strauss and Councillor Ellis.
May I make an observation about signage and maps under this heading? Just a very brief point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
We are putting in new toilets that we're refurbishing, but people don't know they're there. There's been a lot on social media about this. Having more finger posts would be helpful. I just want to make that as an observation when we're considering the budget for next year. And the other thing is, and it really infuriates me, outside our tourist information office and elsewhere, there are maps of Taunton by an external organisation, but they've got information which is years out of date. They're still showing the old police station. And people go into the tourist information office saying they've gone to the old police station, but of course it's not there anymore. And that police station closed years ago. And yet the maps are still showing these old places. Can we please try and do something about this? I know it's an external organisation.
Yes, I was going to say now I know what you're talking about. Yes, it's probably got slightly off topic on this one.
Yeah.
I think we might just have to bring that up through other committee or just through the officers But
I just wanted it just recorded as an observation.
okay,
Thank you, Chair.
the heads, and then I'll go to Paul.
Yeah, just put, because I really support this report, I just want it to go ahead. So maybe there's a phase 2, which is looking at the gaps. And then we can canvass everybody's opinion, and we can focus particularly on more deprived areas might be the best place to start. And then areas where there's high footfall, where you're going to hit a lot of people, which might be appropriate, even if it's not land that we own, maybe we could come to some agreement with somebody. So that may be phase 2, but I don't want to hold this up.
No.
Oh, I agree with you.
I mean, one thing we do have to consider is the more notice boards we have, more officer time it takes to go around and
Got to be maintained.
maintain them and to always update the information. So we do have to balance. I can understand there's some balance, but I think actually just having notice boards out there is a fantastic idea. We really do. I mean, just to really see what the other parishes did, you know, College Road and Galwington and Finn, you know, it'd be good. Taunton was our parish for so many years. That's why we're lacking so many agencies, and it's good to try and really just push out what we're doing and advertising and allowing local groups to advertise themselves. Paul, then,
So if I may just come back on a couple of those points. This notice board project was primarily because of budget restrictions, as part from anything else, was to look at phase 1 being the existing notice boards and getting them to a standard where there's continuity and people know they're Taunton Town Council notice boards. Phase 2 will be looking at that gap analysis in conjunction with the other stuff that's going on around the rotundas, and we've had discussions about how we can use them. But I think we want those to be our assets, to be able to invest in them. We don't want to throw a lot of repair money at somebody else's asset that we don't get the benefit from. I've got one inquiry from one ward councillor to spend the WMIS money on notice board, which I've just sent the costing through to today. So there are options around some of those outlying areas, not necessarily the town centre ones, but some of the other wards where that is an option. But the budget for this year will only cover the refurbishment within this project. We will put proposals forward for next year's budget, but obviously they need to be agreed through council and get adopted before we can commit to those at all.
thank you very much. I believe it was Councillor Taddy. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. I've had 4 people from our ward which have asked, why aren't we getting this? Why don't we get that? Is it because we're the poor ward and the rest of the town doesn't care? And they're right. They look at places like Westmonton. I think they got 16 notice boards in basically 4 villages. We're a town and we're the county town, which is. Can I read one more thing? I promise I won't. The mayor was allowed to carry on with what he said.
Yes.
Well, why we'll put this item on next year, the Minster was promised a fingerboard in the town centre. Sorry.
Okay, we'll bring that forward to take a look with the operations and assets manager.
Just
The course of our normal events, I think.
Yeah,
The course of our normal meetings.
If I may just come back on the finger posts, we're very much aware, very acutely aware of the finger post issue throughout the town centre. We've had discussions with Somerset Council and it's on the back burner. There are many other projects which have, you know, a high priority. Not to say that this isn't important, but with assets being acquired by the town council that are proposed to be changed into other things that affect the town, it would be remiss of us to look at that as an overall project and then knowingly 5 minutes down the line those are out of date. So I think we need a period of steadiness and calm in terms of some of these changes to look at the whole town holistically by way of finger posts, and add any and have that consultation. That means we do it right the first time and we invest in what's going to give us some longevity rather than it being out of date very quickly. So we have other things which are coming on the agenda, which will ultimately influence the detail that goes on those finger posts and that signage throughout the town. Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, I think that draw it to close. I think we're all highly supportive of this, and I'm happy about that. This is a great phase one, and I think there's a lot of work's gone into this, and you know, a lot of reworking as well to make sure we get this right. Yes, I think we'll probably require phase two at some point. Yes, Councillor Ellis.
Sorry, I've got to say, when we're deciding on the location, so like for Frenchweir Park, can we consult the Friends group about where the best place is, just to make sure that they're happy, because like the bins that have appeared, people are like, why have they gone in certain places? One of them looks like she's been in the middle of the pavement. One is at a weird angle, and it's like people are like, what has happened? It's always better, at least if you've consulted the Friends group, then they can sort of field questions and be like, why is that bin at this weird position?
I have to say that is probably, whilst we've looked at the locations for the new boards, in terms of generalised locations, perhaps, yeah, we do need to look very specifically.
Yeah, specifically, sure.
Actually get to park, because several times things have gone into parks, and as you say, they're gone, oh, you know, it's cut right across the people's normal right of way, or not right of way, but they're saying, oh, you used to walk right across there, and now I've got to walk around this board. And so yes, I do think we do need to,
thank you.
and it may be worth talking to the either friends of groups or the local ward councillors, just or anyone living nearby, near the park or where these boards are going. Councillor Furman?
Yes, we'll also need to think in a couple of years about all the new developments and putting signposts around there as well.
Yeah. And Councillor Strauss?
Whilst I'm very flattered, may I just ask why my business card is appendix 6? Just curious.
It was because we were saying that we would have within the wards the local councillor with the information on. So within our bit. So yeah.
Thank you.
It was picked at random, probably because you're on.
Because yes.
Probably because you're on. So you're going to use it. Right. So are we happy to move on to vote? Because I think we're all very supportive of this. Certainly it's phase one, and but try and get good coverage for all the wards. I think it's important that we do cover all the wards. Make sure every ward is covered. So we are to seek agreement for the, just to remind you, to seek agreement to the replacement and upgrade of several of our notice boards across Taunton, delegate decisions, making and spend to the operations and assets manager in conjunction with the RFO, and to recommend the spend of EMR 345. For those listening, EMR is an earmarked reserve, which is benches, bins and signs that will go to full council. So do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Furman. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Just in case, anyone against? No, that was passed unanimously. So well done, Tim. Good call. And we look forward to the new town council logo, of which there is one. I've now found it in Staple Grove. Sometimes I go running past it and I finally noticed it. Right, next item, assets transfer. So we have two plots of land here in the town, Greenbrook Terrace, stroke Tangier Way, which is along Tangier Way, and the corner of Bridge Street. So we are to consider and resolve the approval of the clearance of the corner land at 15 to 17 Bridge Street to be transformed into a community space stroke pocket park with amenities such as planters, benches and bike racks, with the final scheme design and implementation to be delegated to the operations and assets manager to progress in conjunction with the major projects working group, utilising budgets 390-6704 benches, 290-6705 trees and shrubs, or 500-7408 service growth and improvements. 2, delegate to the Deputy Clerk and Finance Resilience Lead Officers to progress the provision of an advertising billboard on the corner land at 15 to 17 Bridge Street, including the obtaining of planning permission. Is that the equivalent of another notice board? No, just an advertising. 3, the committee decide whether to opt for the outlay of capital costs, which would generate a better return over the life of the agreement for the advertising billboard, to be funded from the remainder in budget code town centre improvements 160-7269 to only be committed once planning permission is obtained. Finally, the approval of the remediation of the Greenbrook Terrace Community Garden by the Open Spaces team in conjunction with the Climate and Place Officer with a consultation exercise undertaken to receive expressions of interest from any particular group stroke association that would be willing to operate the space as an allotment stroke community orchard with delegation to the deputy clerk to progress the final lease arrangement upon the completion of the consultation exercise. Right, so that's the recommendations we're looking at, and the report is this yourself, Marcus?
Yeah.
Or is it Paul? It's Marcus. Okay, Marcus, would you like to tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hope you had a chance to read the report. Obviously, you may recall back in full council in April, we took through a report on this matter, and I'm pleased to report that both parcels of land are now in the town council's ownership. And then, so one of the recommendations was about requesting the Operations and Assets Committee to consider further detailed proposals for the future operation and maintenance of both parcels of land. So that's really what we're bringing the report for you tonight. There has been a bit of work from officers looking at both sites as in anticipation of taking ownership of them, and then further to tonight's meeting and your approval. We're keen to obviously crack on and start making those differences to those sites, remediating them with your approval. Let me just see, sorry. There's a bit of detail in the report around the advertising and income generation potential. So I think that was something that councillors raised at full council, something that they would definitely like to see happen. We have had a conversation, some early conversations with some of the leading companies that work in this sphere, and they've said that the income, it depends on the product, the income potential with the digital screens, which we know didn't get planning permission a few years ago, is significantly more. So where you're looking at sort of the classic billboard site, if we were to take on the capital risks of that, that would be around 4.5k per site to build. But for the digital screens, we're looking at more like 90,000, which is a huge sum of money, but the returns for the year would be advised around 60,000, which obviously presents quite a good payback period of only 1.5 years. But there's obviously a greater risk of getting planning permission, because I think it was refused for distractions and things like that. So that the income from a classic site, if we didn't own it, we let the company build it, you're only looking at about £1,000 a year, which isn't nothing, but not as lucrative as perhaps the digital site. It's been suggested considering the classic approach first. Really open to your steer really as a committee as to what you think we should aim for. We've been advised to try and have some early conversations with the local planning authority to see whether they look favourably upon it, and the landscaping scheme and other bits that we would be doing as the council for that plot of land to bring it back into community use. So yeah, you've read out the recommendations. I don't think there's anything further. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, right, I've got several. So we'll go in order. Councillor Strauss, Furman and Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very simple question. If we were turned down for planning permission previously, or an application was turned down, why do we think it would be approved this time? Have we changed it in some way that would make it more acceptable to the planning committee?
Thank you, Chair. So the application for 2023 was the land was to be leased with a 48 sheet LED advertisement put on the gable wall. I mean, if you're going for digital again, we'd obviously take planning of rights, and there's some conversation that we've had that suggests that perhaps it would be looked at more favourably if we were able to add more sensitive features in. But at this stage, without having had this conversation, I'm not sure. Obviously, they didn't apply for a classic site, which isn't. If the concerns were around distracting drivers, that would be less, because it's just that, you know, the pasted poster wall, which, but it may be that even that doesn't get through. So it's purely speculative at this moment, but just looking at income generating opportunities for the council.
Thank you.
Okay, councillor Furman.
Thank you. Yes, I don't think we should go for the digital signage. You know, it may generate more money, but I think it would ruin the kind of the environment of that area. That yeah, as I say, it was rejected for being distracting, and I don't think the town has much, you know, digital advertising. I just don't think it would be a good idea. And you know, we're having these new potentially BC signages, but they have restrictions on the times that they're used, and then there's you know, potentialities for local advertising. So I don't think, you know, if we're doing the advertising, I'd rather it be the classic you know, static boards.
Councillor Hannah.
Right, this is North Town. This is my patch. I'm really happy that we bought these plots of land because they were just sat there doing nothing. And I mean, the one on Greenbrook Terrace at one point was a sort of thriving urban farm. They grew all sorts of stuff, and there was a whole sort of social thing to it as well. They had lots of disabled people who'd been out of work a long time, helping with the growing, and they would sell stuff. It was a really nice project. It needs to be managed very carefully because it obviously you've got Greenbrook Terrace behind it. And you know, you've got residents there, so we have to be sensitive to them. But I love the idea of some sort of community garden / allotment. It was well managed, and there is, you know, there are groups who in the past expressed interest in trying to get their hands on a plot for, you know, that sort of purpose. So I'm very enthusiastic about that. I think it's really important as well that we seize these unused plots and we deploy them for the, you know, to create greater biodiversity, to have more local community food going, and so on and so forth. And similarly for Bridge Street, that thing has been an eyesore. And it basically just says, nah, you know, nobody, nah. So basically, by taking down that hoarding and sprucing up that area and making it lovely, like a mini sort of pockety park thing, the bench and cycle racks and whatever, we're saying actually we care about every single little nook and cranny of the town, and we're not content to have bits just sort of sat there because nobody can be bothered with it. So I think this is really important for the town, these two projects. I am completely in agreement with Councillor Firmin. If you reread all of the planning documents, as I did this afternoon, pertaining to the digital advert display that was proposed, it wasn't just rejected on grounds that it would distract drivers. It was also the conservation officer had a lot to say about it and was not at all happy. They appealed and the appeal got chucked out. So you can forget about digital. I'm also not very keen on the standard advertising board. I think we need to maybe, I can understand why people go, oh, get a bit of money, but you've got to think about placemaking, right? Around town, this is just one example, we needn't do this, but Sam Gaydon is putting some really gorgeous murals in the Taunton Independent Quarter. He's also got on Staple Grove Road Bridge, the rail bridge, he's got that, you know, you're coming into Taunton and you've got the Sam Gaydon mural, and he's really keen to find sites all around the town centre and to be able to sort of take a brief and create something a bit beautiful. So there's another direction you could go in, which is not about, in terms of the wall, that wall, I mean, obviously we'd have to get permission, you know, I'm not saying that's straightforward, you'd have to, you know, there's a whole shebang. But you could do something a bit different, rather than something that's, oh, we'll get £1,000 in a year if we have an advert. Think about the benefit, the wider benefits, the sort of softer benefits. Placemaking benefits, a sense of identity for that particular area of town, Bridge Street, where there are lots of businesses, there's lots of interesting stuff going on. You could also maybe try and connect it, since these are two plots of land and we're trying to create sort of biodiversity corridors. We could also kind of, any art, public art, for example, if we went down that route, could connect. It could be part of something a bit bigger than placemaking, rather than just the advertising. So I'm very wary of going down that, oh, let's just say we'll stick an advertising board on it. The digital one, you can forget that, but no, not happening. You can waste time doing that if you want, but I don't see how this time would be any different. And even with the advertising board, I just like, no, why isn't there a better way? I'm not saying I'm completely, you know, if everyone else like passionately, oh, this would be so amazing for, you know, the town or whatever, but I just think we might be missing a trick here.
I mean, I suppose for the advertising board, the generating revenue, I mean, the area will have to be maintained. Will have to be maintained by our maintenance team, so it will come with a cost. I guess an advertising board is one way of offsetting that cost and not having to sit directly reset. So there is that consideration. Yes, I'm surprised by the digital boards. I quite like digital boards. That gives the town a bit of a modern feel. But if it got rejected by planning, I can't see why things were changed in 2 years. It's probably not really worth going down that route. It's just a waste of time and money there. So, but yeah, so I think there's I like the idea of the actually Soundgate and Artberg. I think it's good to go through them, but I think we should be open to cost. Councillor Fern and Councillor Tully.
Yes, I do remember that there's another piece of work I think he did for the foot therapy business that's on one of the sides of the building, so that would fit into that. And yeah, I think public artwork could be a good area for it.
Yeah, it's then. I mean, the artwork's done on the side of the little wine bar. That's it. And you walk across the bridge and you just see it. It's nice. It really is nice to see. So I'll go to Councillor Tully and
Maybe the idea you should have a look at Brizewood in their shopping area. There was a really rough part of ground there, and it's now a very nice little park. And it doesn't take much maintenance because what they put in it literally just needs to be every now and again trimmed. And it looks perfect. It brings a bit of countryside into it. That's what I thought we were going to do with these places.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marcus. Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, in relation to that gable wall, that's not our property, so we need to get permission from Belvedere and that if we were going to do some sort of public art feature. The advertisers we spoke to, they said if you couldn't get permission from there's a way of constructing it so that it doesn't touch their wall. But yeah.
So that's saying so we could get the advertising board there without impeding on the.
Yeah, they
But
got
the artwork have to go directly onto the wall, and that will require
permission.
okay, permission from the. I mean, I'm conscious that as a group, we're majority are moving away from the advertising board. Yet it's item 2 and 3 recommendations. So, is there any advice on that?
You don't have to approve those recommendations if you're not minded to proceed with that recommendation. The delegation from full council was to this committee to decide what to do with those pieces of land. So you could just pass 1 and 4 if you weren't happy, or if you were happy with the classic. So addressing that, I'm happy to look further into that and bring something back if.
Well, let's start with items 2 and 3 then. Dedicate the deputy clerk and financial resilience to progress the provision of an advertising billboard on the corner land of 1517 Bridge Street. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing out again. Item 3, the committee decide whether to opt for an outlet capital cost which generates a better return over the life of the agreement for the advertising billboard. So those two. Do I have a proposer for that? Okay, so if we strike item 2 and 3, do I have a proposer for that? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Strauss. All those in favour? That's 4. All those against? All those abstaining? Wow, I don't like advertising board, but no, I can see obviously walls. So okay, so we have gone for the proposal to strike item 2 and 3. So agenda items 1 and 4, I'm not going to read them out. So they are, nothing has changed in the terms of the wording. Am I allowed to just not read them out?
Yeah, in my mind that you voted on those.
No, we voted to scrub agenda item 2 and 3.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, no, not agenda item. At the beginning of this meeting, we voted to scrub recommendation 2 and 3.
Yes.
Yeah. So recommendation 1 and 4, yes, that's the wording. Recommendation 1 and 4, we're going to keep as it is written. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tully. All those in favour? That passed unanimously. Right.
That's the right.
Well, we weren't going to get the digital signage boards, so the idea of getting big bucks has gone out the window.
Yes.
And there's a lot of aggro just for
That's a lot of money.
poultry matters a year, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
No.
And it's clearly didn't happen. Right. Item number 7, an agenda request form from Councillor Smith Roberts on disc golf. Is Councillor Smith Roberts joining us, or is so we have to consider the allocation of officer resources to follow up on initial inquiries and test the feasibility costs, potential income and appetite for progressing this proposal, bringing disc golf to Taunton. So seems every committee meeting a new sport is being introduced. So great. So Paul, you're happy to talk this with them?
Thank you, Chair. So as with recently the paddle inquiry, some of these sports appear to be exciting opportunity to bring to Taunton. And this paper is to allow for support of investing officer time into exploring further the feasibility and the associated costs, funding streams, grant funding, all that sort of stuff, and seriously consider whether disc golf as a sport can be brought to Taunton by the town council in a way that benefits the community, generates income, or otherwise improves the town. So there's a little bit of information in the report about what disc golf is. Its initial proposal is to bring it to Hawthorne Park, and Councillor Smith Roberts had received an inquiry specifically for that area. This paper allows for officer time to explore further whether Hawthorne Park is an appropriate place for it, or whether there are others either within the council's remit or outside. The one that's been suggested is Long Run, clearly not ours, but maybe more suitable. The interest in Hawthorne Park is because it undulates well, it's protected on one side by the motorway and by some trees. And it's quite a long range park. If you're throwing a disc, essentially a glorified frisbee, to a target, it gives that interest to the groups and the people that are interested in that sport. So the costs need to be established. The funding needs to be established. There is parking nearby, but we may have to work with others in terms of parking provision. And there are some upfront costs, reference design fee, artwork, etc., to put a proposal together. Our intention at this point is not to be committing any significant financial costs. It's to explore what those costs might be in real terms, what it will cost the council, what that income generation might be to offset those costs. The big benefit with this is that it requires some planting and some landscaping, and if it aligns with some of our other projects around biodiversity, around bringing pollinators into the area, about bringing natural native trees to be planted, kind of seems a good opportunity to combine those and align that and potentially get additional funding for the things we might have to pay for anyway. So essentially the recommendation is to facilitate the officer resources to follow up on the initial inquiries and to check what that feasibility looks like, the cost, the income and the appetite for progressing this within Taunton. Any questions, please?
Right, thank you very much for that. I noticed in the report that Hawthorne Park is predominantly used by dog walkers, and in my head I just pictured the dogs chasing the discs.
I know. Dogs can go bar.
They'll be halfway there, the dog coming, grab it, and you see that disc. Right, anyway, so sensible suggestions. Councillor Furman, you go first, then Councillor Strauss and Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. It says in the report that the Disc Golf UK sort of have pursued this. Do we know if they're sort of committed to setting up like an organised, non-profit, as they say, or is this just like, have they made that suggestion, or are they, quite committed to making this as their, Taunton as a venue for some of their events? And also, do we know how much it would cost to maintain and repair, these holes that we're going to be putting in?
So my understanding is the holes, as they call them, are a galvanized post. They'll have a concrete base embedded in the ground, and they're pretty resilient. They're probably the last 50 years when you look at the examples in the photographs and the video. The video link within the report is one from Disc Golf UK. There are also a lot of video links from America where it's been rolled out many years ago and is gathering a pace. And there are championships, regional, national championships. Disc Golf UK are the people we would contact initially. They're the ones, I believe, who've put the initial inquiry forward. So it's about liaising with them and finding out more about it. This is an early stage. We're just conscious with so many brilliant ideas coming to Taunton and so much enthusiasm to get involved in them, that the committing of officer time is our challenge. So we've just got to be careful, and hence coming to you collectively to warrant us putting that time into a notion that may or may not come to fruition. But we seem to have an appropriate piece of ground there that this sport might be suitable for. So it's just to give the officer time to explore that further and really understand what this is about and whether it's feasible.
Councillor Strauss?
In principle, I think this is an excellent idea, but just one caveat. I hope it's just not one of these things which is a flash in the pan and we put all the effort in and we get it going, and then in a year and a half's time, all the enthusiasm dies away. I'd like to know that there is a definite drive of people to publicise it and get some real enthusiasm for it before we get too involved. In principle, I think anything like this is well worth looking into, but I'm just conscious that I don't want to see another white elephant.
Respond to that. I agree, and that's why we want to approach it cautiously. To devote that time. We don't want to go off on a tangent with officers making those initial explorations that take them many hours only to come to nothing.
Absolutely.
So what's important is that we devote that time. We structure it, and our projects team done some fantastic stuff recently regarding paddle, which will come back at a later report.
Absolutely.
For September's committee. And it's to structure it in a way that we take account of all those facts and we can make an informed decision about it without running off on a tangent. There are a lot of new sports. It's hard to keep track of them. You would have seen them in the last Paris Olympics, and some of the following that those sports gained is absolutely phenomenal. So it's hard to judge at an early stage when they're introduced to a country what the uptake is going to be, and that will be hard for everybody. Certainly there are organisations out there that are investing very heavily in some of these sports, and if it's feasible for it to be brought to Taunton to bring investment into the town, to get people spending money and visitors for the right reasons, then this is about exploring that properly and putting a structure together and being able to give a proper informed report back to decide what the next steps might be. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis and then Councillor Tan.
Yeah, I've got an open mind about this. It isn't, I don't know what it's going to be next week, sort of. I don't know. Might be something else. No, but joking aside, if you're happy, if officers do have a bit of, it's not going to sort of muck up anything else or prejudice anything else, if we can have an initial look at it and just sort of that, I think that's fair enough,
Yeah.
And maybe it could be this really cool thing, or maybe it's a, flash in the pan and it would turn out, no, it's not worth bother. I'm just kind of curious as to what the target market is, because I mean, I don't know this park well enough. I'd love to know what the local community, whether local community, people from kids or who would use it in terms of the locals and what benefit would it bring the locals. And I'm trying to figure out how they would make money. I'm assuming somebody needs to make money, Somerset Disc, whatever they're called, have to make money out of it. I mean, it looks like a fun game, but it is basically frisbee, isn't it? It's chuck the frisbee in something, or kick a football in a hole or something. Is that sort of the same part of the same proposal?
No, it's all above ground.
All above ground.
It's like a.
Yeah, I see the video. Yeah, I know. It's sort of a washing line that you haven't pulled down yet.
It's a chain
Yeah.
so that once the frisbee hits it, it drops into the basket, and it's run over 9 or 18 holes, similar to a golf course. I think the appeal is that it's low cost initially, so anybody can go and buy a disc, albeit a glorified frisbee. But I think the money side of it and the income comes in with generating competition levels, because this is okay for kids to go out in the park on a Sunday and the targets are there and they can practice for free. It's an open space. When the level of competition heats up and you're getting sponsorship deals for players that are at a higher level, that's when that income is generated, and we need to understand what that means for the council. So that's why we want to explore it further.
It is interesting actually, because just going back to Councillor Tracy's, as the ward member, Councillor, how often do you see that Taunton court to use in Shreya Park?
That was my reason.
There are groups that use it. I've used it before. We use it in the French Way Fun Day. Gideon and I shall be running, as we do every year, the balls and the skittles on the patrol.
Can I join in?
But it needs a bit of extra TLC. I think if we put a bit of extra TLC in there, I've had a long conversation with people about this. And remember, we had like a sinkhole at one corner for it. That kind of put people off. It's about also who has a ball thing. So I don't know that anybody's got. And then what we need to make sure there's a ball set that you can just borrow from the cafe or what have you. People do use. What I like is if it's a sort of thing that lots of people have fun with it, and it's free to use unless you're having a competition. Great, I love that. People do use like the table tennis tables. They're really quite popular, that kind of thing. Just a quick point. Don't poke this in the direction of Long Run Meadow. It's our floodplain and it's a nature reserve. So I don't think that it's not suitable for that sort of thing.
That's quite good. I was wondering if French Way Cafe would hire out ball sets. That'd be feels. Everyone's listening to this. There's a great Batonk surface in French Way. Go and use it. It's great. I've got a set of balls at home.
So I challenge you to a match.
Yeah, we'll be awesome. Next team building day.
Yes.
But French Village start hiring balls. So it's like golf, and you get many. So there's obviously has like a par 3 or par 4. Do you know what the length of each hole is?
They can go up to 500 meters. And some of
Really?
when you get to top level,
That's good.
and
Actually,
the environmental impact is minimised, because once the holes are there, they're a single fixing into the ground, and there's nothing much touching the ground except people walking from point A to point B. So it doesn't churn up the ground like a golf course would. There's not football contact with the grass and destroying things. It is just a disc that flies through the air. So it's a minimal environmental impact. Even what wouldn't be affected by the floodplain until it floods, in which case you just can't play.
I think it's close, isn't it? I think that the longest hole in the golf, was it 440 yards? That's 440 yards, about 440, isn't it?
It's visualising on the other taking snatcher.
Wow. No, councillor Taunton.
Yes, personally, I like the idea.
Yeah.
It's especially the elder people, people like me who can't run anymore. I'd enjoy that. The only thing I suggest we do is let's find out where there's one and
Yes.
how it works.
Good.
Before
good
we
thing.
can go any farther. Thank you.
I mean, don't forget, councillor Taunton, you won't have to bend down to pick up the disc.
Oh, I'll grab her.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is yes, finally, do we know where these are already established?
Jack has had a look at it, just to a limited extent, but we would like particular officer who's very thorough on the projects team to look at this in a little more in depth. And
I can see now.
sure
They're alone.
takes his disc with him when he
I
goes.
think it's as an outing.
Mendit disc golf.
I think it's great bringing new sports to this.
Mendit disc golf, Ashton Court.
Oh, that's not far away.
No.
Perhaps we should.
Have a look.
See where go.
Yeah. There you go. It's a photograph as well.
But I think it's like to bring something new. And as you say, this could be for any age, isn't it? This is for any age.
Yeah, there are fantastic comments about it.
Yeah.
Great reviews.
Councillor Furman,
And-
blood is draining from you all.
Thank you. Yes, no, we just need to make sure that if we do go for it, that that the organisation do go for the grants, as they say, because that's going to cover 90%. Otherwise we're going to be sinking 20,000 potentially into this.
I mean, I guess, do people hire the discs or do they just have to go and buy their own set?
They can do both.
Most disc golf courses are free to play,
Yeah.
whereas in ball golf, you have to pay per round often for a cart. So it depends, but they're not normally high cost facilities.
Sorry, Chair. Oops. Sorry, Chair. Just one query. Is there any other kind of sport played on that park? I don't know it.
I don't think there
Not as far as
is.
we're aware.
I would say it's got quite a slope to it, that park.
It's cheating. There's a mix.
Yeah, so actually, in terms of accessibility
Kill
for ages, I think it's,
The next
I'm wondering if it's fully accessible in that respect, because it has quite a slope to it. You've got all the dogs chasing on it. But yeah, Councillor Furman, and then I think we move to a vote, I think.
Yeah.
Favourably.
Yes, I was going to propose that we go ahead with some exploratory work.
Definitely. So that's the proposal. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strauss. All those in favour? Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think that carried unanimously, and I think as a council, we're off now to again amend it. So, so let me go and do that. And again, just advertise the fact there's a wonderful Taunton course at Frenchwood. Here we go.
Play the stuff.
Tu colles, you know, boule. Pourquoi tu colles de boule?
Or it's which part of France you're from, I think. Isn't it? Councillor Strauss will know which part of France. Ball. Part of France. Call it Taunton.
Yes.
Yeah, but which part of France, or is it just generally?
Is it part of France? Well, yes. I mean, it's called Pétanque in the south and
In the south.
in the north.
All in the north.
But it's the same game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
But it fits in with the next Lees Youth, is it?
You're not off again.
Was it balls to Taunton, is it? So,
You might say that, I couldn't possibly comment.
yeah. So, right, okay, so next item is access to information, motion to exclude the press and public. So the next item is going to be discussion on buildings 1 and 2. So during discussion of the following items, it may be necessary to pass the following resolution to exclude the press and public, having reflected on the presumption in favour of openness. Decision may be required because consideration of this matter in public may disclose information falling within one of the descriptions of exempt information in Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. You will need to decide whether, all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So the recommendation under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business on the grounds of the next agenda item, on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively, part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So I shall propose this. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Talley. All those in favour?